Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Today we are talking about Sapiens Part 4, which is called The Scientific Revolution. Well, I hope you've been enjoying this review series so far. I know I've certainly been enjoying it and enjoying kind of breaking this one up into 4 different parts based on each section of the book overall. So what we've had the cognitive revolution, we've had the agricultural revolution, we've had the unification of mankind, and now we also have the scientific revolution, which kind of goes hand in hand with the industrial revolution. So as we go through, it kind of talks a lot about the advancements in medical sciences, the advancements in military and warfare as well, and all the different science and that goes into that, our understanding of the universe, and how things have expanded just rapidly at such a quick and fast degree. If just over the past 500 years, as we kind of take a comparative look. Now, it also goes on beyond that as well. Like, it's not just about the scientific revolution. The book really kind of covers and goes into more detail about how things have advanced generally across the world globally in the last 500 years, not just in respect to science itself. Uh, and what I really like about this is, for myself, I tend to be an optimist. I try to focus on the good, not at the expense of the bad, not trying to ignore the bad or anything like that, but really just kind of focus on the positive and the good progress and the good things that have been happening. So I really love how he pointed out within this book how most people in most countries are not starving to death anymore. Whereas 500 years ago, 6, 7, 800 years ago, starving to death was a very real threat for the individual. Whereas now, in most countries, there is this social net to which people can fall back on, so that they are not starving to death. In fact, in a lot of, especially more in the developed world, obesity is a bigger threat than starvation. And while poverty itself hasn't been universally eliminated, significant progress has been made due in large part to scientific advancement, which I think is a very positive way to look at it. I have always tried to take that perspective myself. Uh, just some examples of that. In the past 200 years, our life expectancy has literally doubled from what it was 200 years ago. Maybe not completely doubled, but pretty close to it. And these are just some things that we absolutely love to hear. This is what I love to hear. I love thinking and focusing on that positive side of things. Those are the parts of it that really speak to me, because I love looking at the good, right? And then we have, I certainly learned some really interesting things, some pieces of history I found really interesting as I was going through this and reading. This is the history of Wall Street. What I didn't know is that New York used to be called New Amsterdam, and that it was surrounded by this protective wall in the initial colony that was set up by the Dutch West Indies Company. And it was, this wall was there to protect it from the British and from the natives, uh, who would attack New Amsterdam. And then Wall Street was literally built right over top of this wall. So Wall Street literally is built on a wall. I love that. I thought that was a really interesting tidbit of history that I've learned from this book. So really happy to have learned that. And I just love learning more about these little tidbits here and there. So again, just kind of going back to focus on this idea of having a positive or bright future, and things have improved throughout our history just in the last couple hundred years significantly. Is statistically, war is actually significantly less common than it was a century ago. More and more we're heading towards global peace, and while global conflicts certainly don't seem to be happening anymore, yes, there are local conflicts in certain political areas or zones of the world. Generally speaking, these massive, widespread global conflicts just don't happen anymore. We're so interconnected globally now, economically, that kind of leaves us dependent upon virtually everybody else, and as a result, this leads towards more more dependence, which needs peace to thrive. People or countries are no longer going to war with each other to such a large scale. And like I said, yeah, there are local conflicts. There is still military conflicts going on. But comparatively speaking, they're much smaller scale than they used to be. The amount of people dying in war is significantly less. In fact, statistically, you're more likely to die at your own hands than to be killed in war or by somebody else. More people are killed by drunk driving every year, or just car accidents, maybe not drunk driving specifically, but more people die in vehicle accidents and by violent crime each year than by actual war. And even those stats have been decreasing. So we're getting more peaceful, not just in terms of global military conflict, but also in terms of overall crime rates. I really, really like that idea. I don't just like that idea, I like that reality. I think this is a very positive thing. And I see it when I take a look at the world. It's kind of how I've come to view things and understand things as well. Poverty rates are down globally, global conflicts are down, crime rates are down, just everything is getting better. And the scientific revolution has played a key role in bringing about this more prosperous, peaceful, better, higher quality of life throughout the world. That being said, like I do have some critiques of the book as a whole. Um, Two things that he mentions throughout this book is this idea that uh, that communism, democracy, uh, these things are religions. He refers to them as religions. I disagree with that. I don't think they're religions. I view them as political positions or systems, not religions. He argues about the collapse of the family, simply because government and society and culture has taken on the roles that historically family has taken on, such as protection, health care, employment, that kind of thing. Because that is no longer part of the dynamic of the family as a whole, where we have law enforcement, we have the medical industry, we have the economy, business that employs people. Because that's no longer part of the family role, he refers to us as the collapse of the family, which I disagree with. I don't think the family's collapsing at all. I think that we are absolutely seeing a dynamic change in what it is that we define as a family. The family is absolutely evolving and changing, but I completely disagree with the idea that this means the family is collapsing. And quite frankly, I want my kids to be able to grow up to be independent of me, because I think that's important for their own dependence and their own self determination. And it's not the collapse of the family for this kind of dynamic to change, whereas before, people were always dependent on their family. And in many ways, I think that's actually a good thing, that we're becoming more independent and self sufficient on our own, versus historically where it was always relying on the family. I don't feel that that means the decline or critiques of the family. Although, with respect to family, I will say that there's one aspect of his discussion on the family that I did agree with, and it's just this brief little part I'm going to read to you. Today, parental authority is in full retreat. Youngsters are increasingly excused from obeying their elders, whereas parents are blamed for anything that goes wrong in the life of their child. Mom and dad are about as likely to get off in the Freudian courtroom as were defendants in a Stalin show trial. Now, that I could agree with. I've seen it happen, seen stuff like that happen, and that aspect, at the very least, is true, at least for me. That while children are becoming more independent, while they're required to make more independent decisions, parents will still be held accountable for the actions of their children, in way too often, in too many ways, where really maybe they shouldn't be. So I think that that is absolutely correct in that particular aspect of that assessment. And one of the other topics that he discussed is this idea of genetic engineering and becoming these bionic beings and perhaps evolving past the idea of what it is to be human. One part that honestly kind of gave me the chills is when discussing this bionic being aspect. And I just want to quickly read that to you as well. Uh, it says, yet of all the projects currently under development, the most revolutionary is the attempt to devise a direct two-way brain-computer interface that will allow computers to read the electrical signals of a human brain, simultaneously transmitting signals that the brain can read in turn. What if such interfaces are used to directly link the brain to the internet, or directly link several brains to each other, thereby creating a sort of interbrain net? What might happen to human memory, human consciousness, and human identity if the brain has direct access to a collective memory bank? In such a situation, one cyborg could, for example, retrieve memories of another, not hear about them, not read about them in an autobiography, not imagine them, but directly remember them as if they were his or her own. What happens to concepts such as the self and gender identity when minds become collective? How could you know thyself or follow your dream if the dream is not in your mind but in some collective reservoir of aspirations? So that very idea gave me the chills. Like, that is the Borg right out of Star Trek. These cyborg or cybernetic beings all interconnected into this one massive collective mind. That is absolutely the Borg from Star Trek. Uh, It's kind of creepy. It really is, if you think about it. The advancement in technology and the kind of potential that it has. So I think, in a way, in many ways, that could actually serve as a warning to us about what is coming, the technology that we have, and to really consider how to use that technology in an effective way. And that can absolutely be a vital question that we need to ask ourselves. Essentially, it boils down to, what do we want? And I think he wraps it up really well right at the end when he says here, we are more powerful than ever before, but have very little idea what to do with all that power. Worse still, humans seem to be more irresponsible than ever, self-made gods, with only the laws of physics to keep us company. We are accountable to no one. We are consequently wreaking havoc on our fellow animals and on the surrounding ecosystem, seeking little more than our own comfort and amusement, yet never finding satisfaction. Is there anything more dangerous than dissatisfied and irresponsible gods who don't know what they want? So let's ponder that. Some profound insight, great read, fantastic book. I highly recommend it. So check it out. And those are just my thoughts on part 4, the scientific revolution, and the book as a whole. I hope that you've been following this series. If not, definitely check out Noah Harari playlist on this channel. Go back, watch parts 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Drew's Book Reviews. And until then, keep reading. See you next time. Bye.